Yeah, woo! Hey guys. This is episode 2 of my podcast. I recently had my friend Adela on the show, and we talked about her show, The Underbelly Hours, her new job at a Polish American radio station, how music has changed throughout 2020, and also the music she's been into recently. I had a little bit of technical difficulties with the Zoom conference, so if you hear some choppy chop on the audio, that's why. Anyway, enjoy the show! Yeah! Woo! Yeah!
Hello. Whoa,
Hey.
I'm very dark. That's
No,
okay.
that's okay.
I didn't mean for that to happen, but that's super backlit. That's unfortunately the only light I have in this room right now.
It's cool. It's got like an indie rock vibe to it.
Totally what I was going for. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there you go. How's
Nice.
everything going?
Man, yeah. That's an interesting question, isn't it? I feel like things are pretty good. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, by the way.
Yeah, I hear you great.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'm wondering if you're hearing my audio through my mic or if you're hearing it through. Let's see.
Have you ever done
Okay.
like a
You are.
Zoom,
There you go.
yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, super awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been okay. It's been pretty good. It has, really good ups and just really, I wouldn't even call them downs, just like uncertainty on what exactly is going on in the world. Like everyone else, just
Yeah.
trying to figure things out.
Yep.
So, yeah.
For sure.
How are you?
Pretty good. Same, yeah. A lot of ups and downs, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Just
Just gonna
that's kind of all I can say about it,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do more like original projects and stuff, so that's been really exciting to me. But that's kind of it.
Nice. So have you like when you say original projects, do you mean more just branching out bass stuff or also writing?
Mainly writing right now, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of just like songwriting and just trying to like do some stuff under my own name, maybe like
For sure.
I kind of want to release like an EP by the end of the summer. Like we'll see if it happens, but like maybe a 5-song EP with me singing, playing guitar, playing bass, whatever,
Cool,
so
yeah.
I'm really
That's
excited about
awesome.
that. So hopefully it happens, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You never know sometimes. But I'm rooting for you. That sounds really fun.
Thanks. Oh, also the Brainstorm album. That's the
Yeah, that's
the biggest thing. And also thank you for your contribution. That was really nice of you.
for sure. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I meant it when I said that. Like, Brainstorm's always something that, I mean, whenever you guys have performed, it's just so goofy that it's like perfect, and I think it really
Thanks.
does bring a smile on people's faces. And it's a really good example of how music doesn't always have to be serious, but, just fun. It could just be
Yeah,
fun.
for real. Yeah. Thank you for that. And I'm really excited about the album. It's like, it's basically all done. Like we recorded the whole thing in probably August in my garage. And we've been spending all this time, like I've been doing overdubs, recording vocals, doing all this stuff. So that's actually been taking up most of my time. I don't know why I didn't mention that before. I kind of forgot about it. But I just sent it off to Grant for him to
Nice.
mix. So he's going to be done with that pretty soon. Then should be ready to release.
Awesome. Can't wait to
Yeah.
hear it.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, let's talk about Underbelly Hours first.
Sure. Yeah.
How did you like get started with that? Because I know you've been doing it for a long time.
So basically, I started it just because I wanted to play my friends' music on the radio. At this point, this was 2017 when I started it, so it was like my second semester of college. At that point, I've been playing local shows a little bit all throughout high school, so I had a bunch of friends who were in different bands and whose music I honestly listened to almost as much, if not more, than I actually listened to the actual radio. Wow. So that was really the inspiration, just to try and make other people also be aware of this really great music that was happening in their own backyards, and that I think there is sometimes a stigma attached to. Sometimes it's a little bit less so now, especially with like the rise of TikTok and I think bedroom producers, but I think there still is, and there definitely was back then, a little bit of a stigma of people who played music locally were just kind of like, karaoke style people who didn't necessarily sound very good and who usually had some sort of issues going on in their life, or people who just weren't really classified as musicians, almost just like kind of, your local karaoke singer or whatever. So I kind of wanted to help change people's perceptions of that. Had no idea what I was doing in the beginning, but over the years, I think I've definitely kept at it and tweaked with every passing year, added things that were more fun, added things to make it more of a listening experience instead of just like, I think a monologue, which sometimes happened at the beginning when I still didn't know how to interview people. And yeah, fun experience for sure. But 2017 was when I started, and it was because of my friends, really.
That's super cool. Wow. So can you like kind of run through the layout of your show? Like, do you have certain segment? Because I haven't really listened to a whole episode yet. Like I've checked it out little by little, do you have like certain segments that you do? And I know you have bands on almost every time. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's predominantly still an interview-based show. So the format has changed over the years, but basically the format we do now is we have like an introduction. We do a little segment about new music. So the latest releases from the last month or so, things that we really like, usually just 2 or 3 each, me and Dan.
Is it more local, or is it just kind of all over the place?
More local, although the new season, the thing we just started up now, our new reboot, we do want to bring in slowly more voices from around the country occasionally, but make that its own special segment. Like, I guess I'm going to dive into that now. An upcoming segment we have is we'll have maybe once a month calls into other podcasts doing things like us in like Detroit or New York, or, make connections across the country and have them talk about their local scene, as a kind of a special guest. But regardless of whatever it is, we always have at least one guest interview that kind of the podcast centers around. And we have little sprinkles of other things around it depending on the day. So almost always new music segment. Generally lately now, we're going to also include entertainment news. So like the latest, for example, updates with COVID-19 restrictions on entertainment, or, the Save Our Stages bill. Hold up, my dog just barreled into the room.
Oh no.
Okay. It's okay. And so basically little segments like that, but the main core is an interview. And within the interview too, we have different segments. So we start off usually with an icebreaker game, especially if you don't know the person. Sometimes it can be hard to talk about, the deepest meanings of their songs if the person is meeting you for the first time, feels a little uncomfortable around you. Yeah. And you can usually read the body language, right? If the person this is their first interview, for example, and they've never really done something like this before. So we like to make it a little goofy at first. Like we have a series of icebreaker games in our back pocket that we use. One of them's like literally onomatopoeias about your music. We name a song, you give us an onomatopoeia of what that song means to you. Or we have like rapid fire games where we ask them questions and they have 5 seconds to respond. Things to kind of warm them up really a little bit before we get into the main meat. Yeah, because I think when we started that a year ago, because I noticed that, being an interview-based show, who we have really makes the content of the episode. And if the person we have on is somebody who has good music but is like super nervous, or this
like
is their
Elliott
first
Smith
interview
or something,
right? Yeah. It can be hard for people to listen through the parts where we get to the feature interviews music, for example, because the talking segments are so difficult to get through. So we just kind of wanted to figure out ways to warm up people a little bit more to us and show that we're really just goofy music nerds trying to have a good time, and then talk about maybe the more serious stuff about, especially if an album is heavy or a songwriter is trying to tackle something difficult through their songs, we've noticed this really helps with warming them up.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Do you guys still do live, like all live broadcasts of your shows, or is it recorded now? Or
so 2020 changed a lot.
yeah, for sure.
2020, when the quarantine hit, we started doing Zoom interviews for a little bit, and at that point we decided to buy a Zoom subscription so that we can simultaneously broadcast it live on Facebook, since we didn't have access to the radio station. And now we still don't have access to the radio station because we're both alumni and they don't let alumni in for shows at this current time. So we decided to do, probably in July, is take a break from the Zoom stuff, raise some money, and just buy equipment to upgrade our podcast a lot. So we bought like more professional mics. We moved all of our stuff to Dan's basement. We bought some video cameras, a backdrop, and this Sunday, actually, so today, we just recorded our first episode of the first new season. That's going to drop on Monday. So we're no longer doing live stuff for now because we're still raising money for the next upgrade, which would be to buy better internet so that we can try live streaming on Twitch or something like that, or YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm guessing then there's probably not a lot of like editing in post for your shows. It's all kind of like seamless almost.
A lot of that, yeah. For the most part, it's not a whole lot of editing. Now that we have a more video component, we actually have a friend of Dan's who's helping out with the video editing. So we're going to have like, just something a little bit more entertaining if people want to watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not really usually that much editing, except for going back to the idea of people who get really nervous. If we have somebody who really starts to either do huge pauses in between their responses, or go in circles because they're nervous. So both of which we've had. And we try not to edit down the interview even then too much because we don't want to like lose the essence of what people are saying. But there's this one guy, for example, we had over Zoom interviews who just really at first was going around in circles, and we had to, just for the sake of him coming across good too, kind of cut some of that down to just the core points of what he was saying. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I think for the most part, we don't really have to do much editing. It's almost the rare occasions now. And unfortunately, I think Zoom has made that a little bit worse. We were really down to barely any editing when we were in studio because we were getting so good with like just our body language, showing the people that we're, like I said, goofy nerds who just want to have a good time. We're not intimidating, and really getting people into the feeling that this is a conversation among people who love music and nothing really else,
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. Where can your show be found? Like, is it on podcast networks, Spotify?
Yeah, so actually we're part of a Chicago podcasting network called Ox Audio, which releases all of our content to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. Yeah. Which are those are the main platforms. I think this also can be found on some obscure ones, whatever they use. Like, it's a third party thing, so I'm sure it lands on some sort of, indie websites that people don't know about too much. But we hit the main four. And it can also be found on oxchicago.com, which is the website that is the Chicago-based podcasting platform. It's basically like a network. So it's a family of different podcasters around the area who just really love making podcasts. And actually, they're always looking for more people to join. So if anyone's interested, like you,
yeah, for sure.
Just when you have like a couple of episodes, you can shoot them an email, and they'll review your stuff, ask you why you want to be in a podcast network, and etc.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's cool.
Did they reach out to you, or did you kind of seek them out?
So they reached out to us when it was basically first starting up under a different name. There's a little bit of drama within it, so I'm not going to go too much into it. Basically, Ox used to be part of a bigger company, and then had to branch out when the bigger company wasn't really striving to evolve at all, and kind of just got stuck in the same place and wasn't moving fast enough for the people in the podcasting section. But yeah, they reached out to us first. Andy is the guy who runs it. Andy King, really, really creative, interesting guy. A little bit eccentric, but he's very fun.
Yeah, you kind of have to be.
Yeah, he's just got like this very dry sense of humor, and it's pretty great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Do you have a favorite band or artist that you've interviewed, or maybe a couple?
Ooh. That's
I know
hard.
you guys have done so many interviews now. Is it like you guys do it weekly, I think?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, so you probably have a lot of episodes at this point.
We do. I wish I started keeping track right at the beginning, which I didn't.
Yeah.
So I have to go back now and count. And also, I mean, it is worth saying that the first year, even year or two, wasn't crazy consistent too. So it wasn't necessarily every week. But I think a few of the ones that really stick out to me, there's one... Sorry, my dog just hitting himself in the face with this toy.
Oh my God.
Sorry. Okay, wait, train of thought. So I really liked the Emily Blue interview.
Okay.
We did this one when Dan was at Riot Fest. So this was remote. He was doing occasional check-ins with me about Riot Fest. Just things that he really liked.
What year
when
was
he was
this?
there. 2018
Oh, okay.
or 2019. Oh no. Doggo. He ran into the couch.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
He's trying to get your attention.
He is, but like he's normally very quiet, so I don't know why he's doing this right now. It's because I look so strange. I have all these wires everywhere.
Oh yeah, he thinks you're like an alien with your headphones
Probably.
on and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah. In any case, though, Emily Blue was really, really fun, and I'm almost okay. I love you, Dan,
Did she
but I'm
play at
almost
Riot
glad.
Fest?
She didn't play at Riot Fest, so she
Okay.
was in the studio. Basically, Dan and I split up for that day. He had tickets the whole weekend to go to Riot Fest, and I was like, well, since you're going to go, just, call into the studio occasionally, tell us how it's going, what your favorite acts have been so far, and I'll still be in the studio, and I'll just interview a guest like we always do.
Mm-hmm.
So we had Emily Blue coming, and I almost wish she came in like a year later when we were a little bit more professional, but it was still so much fun. She's such a incredible songwriter, first of all.
Okay.
Very well produced pop music. She does a lot of pop music, but it's kind of runs the gamut too. Like there's some experimental stuff that she does. There's some more rock stuff that she does. But whatever she does is always very cohesive with like visual aesthetics as well. So she wrote, for example, this song called Cellophane that has a lot of like things made out of plastic in the music video and a very 50s vibe, insinuating that things back then seemed very like wrapped in plastic, very like sterile, things weren't really changing. It's very cool. Everything she does has a theme. So I really enjoyed talking to her for that. And also because she has this really great album called, what was it? It's like Violet or something like that. And it kind of goes through her experience of just different feelings of like being a woman growing up and realizing that, maybe you're not like the perfect person that a lot of people think that you are, and what happens, the feelings you get like with like unwanted attention from like guys, and just there's a lot of like really relatable as a woman things in that album that I think she came across and presented very, very honestly, but also very like sweetly.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't very in your face or anything like that. So I really enjoyed that a lot. And I think another really good interview was also with this band called The Jab, who is led by a guy named Jam Alker. And this interview, I want to say, was January 2020. He just got signed with his band to Warner Brothers, I want to say.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's making it. And his story is just fascinating, though. He's a guy who got basically himself into a really big heroin addiction when he was pretty young. He had a really successful music career and was going to be signed when he was much younger, kind of fell into drugs and ended up having to take a long time in rehab to get himself out of it. And he's been through some shit. He's seen a lot of things. And I just remember the honesty that he had when talking about, like, for example, his struggle with rehab. And I was really stricken by the fact that he was very open and honest about the whole process, like all the ugly parts too, and what that meant for him to come out the other side. It was really, really interesting and fascinating, and what music meant to him, honestly, during that time too, when he was trying to face his battle with this disease. And now he's a public speaker, so he goes around the country kind of advocating for the rebranding a lot of times of people who fall into heroin and just any sort of addiction, to stop like victimization and to get really the empowerment going of people who fall into addiction, because most of the time the people who do are people who need just an extra push, of help. They're people who go through some shit in their lives, and the last thing you do is want to make them feel worse than they already are. So he's doing a lot of great stuff, and then to have him come in and find out that his band's getting signed, that was like, ooh, that was so cool. And it was also the first chance we got to use to try out WRSC's new live studio. So now, I don't know if it's still there, unfortunately, because of a whole fiasco that the school didn't communicate to me, because I was the station manager at the time. But we finally got the budget to build like a acoustic studio out of one of our rooms, so a band could come in and just track an acoustic song and have it be really good quality, instead of just sit by the radio microphones and like kind of plunk along and have it be like really grainy audio. They can actually have like a little mini audio tree idea is the situation, and it sounded really good, so that was good. But unfortunately with COVID, we only got to use the studio like a couple of times, before everything went down. But yeah, so those are the two that stick out, but man, there's been a lot, so I'm sure I'm missing a lot of really good moments too. Oh yeah, like that one time there was a Crawl Across the Sky. He's moved to Baltimore now, but he's a kind of post-metal, very dark kind of musician sometimes with his music. But he came in and talked about this concept album he had, about his journey with depression and how that alienated him from his church. And the whole like 20-song concept album was dealing with the stigma of mental illness in the church. And he had this guy is so smart. Like, he could quote you passages from like books he's read, just off the top of his head. It was insane. One of the smartest people I've ever met. That was also really cool. Yeah.
Well, I think it's also really cool that you don't limit your guests to like certain genres, Yeah.
It's like, and that was always eccentric. A goal from the beginning. Yeah. That was always a goal from the beginning, because I think too many times too, people, it was for multiple reasons. One is that there's always good music in all genres. That's a strong belief of mine. And two is, I think sometimes people tend to stigmatize certain types of genres, or people who listen to certain types of genres, if they've never listened to it before. And my goal was, with someone as, hopefully as nice, and I'm kind of dorky, so I can make things a little accessible for people, so they can see that, hey, like this guy who wrote this 20-song concept album about mental illness and the problems within that in the church, it's a metal album. So people otherwise, when they're looking at this, they would have been like, oh my God, he's like a metal artist, he must be a Satanist, Yeah. And then instead it turns out that this guy had like this really deep spiritual journey with like the church and everything else. So I also wanted to hopefully open people's ears and eyes a little bit to the people who make this type of music, or rap, for example. I had a really interesting experience with my mom, who was listening to a show of ours when we interviewed this rap artist from the south side of Chicago. And she would have never on her own listened to this girl's music. But because we had an interview with her and was kind of exploring the backstory of the songs and stuff, like, she was actually listening to rap music for the first time. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's things like that we hope to bring to the table by not limiting genre.
Well, I think when people hear the story of like an artist or an album that like is them, like, they're able to dip their toes in it almost, instead of like they'll probably like listen to a song, it's like, oh, that's boring, swipe past in Spotify or whatever, but like when people hear like how much a group of songs could mean to like the person who wrote it, it's like, well, it's like, I'm not gonna just swipe past that because that's like such an important part of one person's life.
100%. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a bit about the Polish radio station you started, or not started, but the show?
Yeah, sure. That was fun. That's interesting. Basically last year, 2019 now, I guess, in November, I was just channel surfing on the radio. I was driving to something, and I heard this advertisement on a station for a radio DJ. They were looking for someone who's young, who speaks Polish and English, and who has some college radio experience. I'm like, wow, okay, that's me. And I wasn't thinking about, jobs necessarily at the time because I was still in school, but this is my senior year, so I'm like, I'm just going to apply, see what happens, at least have my name in there just in case when I'm getting out of college, because I still really didn't know what exactly I wanted to do once I got out of college. I could see myself doing a few different things. I get a call back. Turned out that they were looking for someone like me, and there aren't a lot of people like me just because of the Polish part of the equation.
For sure.
Someone who speaks Polish. And I started out just by writing things like doing advertisements and coming in every week with like a music update. That was my thing that I had to do. I was like the resident concert calendar girl, and I kind of worked my way up from there.
Was it mainly Polish artists?
No, it was just American, like stuff happening in Chicago, because it's based in Chicago. The station's based in Chicago, and while we do speak Polish and English, we are also predominantly a local radio station, right? We're FM, but it's a smaller station, so we have to do a lot of like local promotions and stuff. So it's just like a concert calendar for Chicago, basically. And they, for a long time, a couple months, were experimenting with just putting me with different people for longer periods of time, shorter periods of time. And then eventually in July 2020, they found this other recent graduate named Peter, who worked really well as like a as a host. He was very, very charismatic, and they put me with him, and we realized we had a lot in common to talk about. So the show sounds really fluid and good. And ever since July, we've kind of been running that, and I've been hired as full time at that point.
Nice.
On air Monday through Friday, 3 to 7 p.m.
Plug
on a Polish American radio station, WPNA 103.1 FM.
Yeah.
What's weird though, and I will say, is it was such an adjustment, man, from college radio to this, because everything is much more quick. It's top 40 format, so even though it's like top 40 around the world, we play Polish top 40, American top 40, French top 40, Spanish top 40. It's still top 40, so everything has to be like, you have a 3-minute time limit for this entrance. You have a 2-minute time limit for this entrance. You have to be optimistic. You can never talk about anything that could be vaguely controversial. It's very, on one hand, when you're listening to it, it's like, oh, these guys are kind of talking about nothing, or they're talking about, happy, positive things, or I don't know, where you can go light your Christmas tree, whatever. But on the other hand, it's an interestingly stressful environment because you're so limited. You're so limited to what you can say for how long. And the extra challenge of 2020 was being positive all the time. Like you couldn't let yourself really slip up and talk about something that you really felt, because most of the time what we really felt was like confusion, depression, dread, existential dread. What the fuck is going on? So that was really weird to get used to, not gonna lie. But I think it's also taught me a lot about looking on the bright side of things, even when I don't want to. Coming in every day and kind of turning on a switch, being like, okay, this is Radio Adela now, and Radio Adela has to be XYZ because people who are listening to me might be having the worst day of their year, might be having their job late, like they got laid off today, or they, know somebody who got sick with COVID. How do I want to present for those types of people? Not necessarily for myself, but for those types of people. So it was kind of a blessing and a curse. Blessing because I got to work and I, have to look on the bright side of life. The curse is feeling this very forced optimism every day. And sometimes, especially during like 2020 summer, when all the, protests were happening and I was trying to read up on things, like I got home some days and like I didn't feel anything, just so emotionally drained from turning on this like high energy switch in a time when I didn't feel like it was very appropriate to be high energy.
How long are you on air, like at a given time usually?
So the show is 4 hours, so 3 to 7 p.m. But
nice.
But there's breaks. So like obviously we play music. At the top of the hour and the half hour mark,
that's when you can cry about.
That's when I can
all the
cry.
things that are going on in the world.
Right, that's when you can cry, and then you have to have like your shot of espresso right next to you, so you stop crying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
right. Top of the hour, half hour mark are both news segments, so we have a break there, and then we also have a 45-minute mark, usually like sports guy come in and do some sports things.
Sports guy, yeah.
It's actually cool because we have two, because they're Polish Americans, so we have one guy come in to do it in English, and then the next hour some guy comes in and does it in Polish. And our English guy is actually Mexican American, and I have no idea, like he's super cool. I just don't know how he found himself here. It's super cool. His name's Sal. Shout out to Sal. So.
That's awesome. Do you have to show up at like crazy early hours?
Oh God, no. And that's another crazy thing actually, because normally when you graduate and if you're lucky to get a job at a radio station, you're usually the salesperson. So you have to, get paid like the worst amount of money for answering phone calls and, trying to plug the station, or like running around a festival, getting people water and stuff. I was lucky enough. It's literally just luck that I happened to apply at the right time, because I work from 3 to 7. That's my shift. But then for the full 8 hours, because I come in for 4 hours before that to do show prep, but also like search out potential advertisers, do any sort of translation that needs to be done, do any sort of social media stuff that needs to be done. So I work from about 11 to 7.
Okay.
So it's not crazy hours at all. I know people who've started in radio who worked like the 7 to midnight, or worse, the midnight to 6 a.m. shifts.
That's unimaginable.
Yeah. And honestly, I think they don't even do those anymore, the midnight to 6 a.m. At that point, it's mostly just automated people. It's either pre-recorded or no live DJ at all, just machine picking music, because it's not worth it to pay somebody for those hours anymore.
I've heard so many horror stories of radio DJ jobs. Like every single person I've ever talked to is like, do not do it. Especially my parents are like, do not get into radio at all.
Well, actually, funny story. So I don't necessarily have like a horror story related to it, but every single person at my workspace has a side job that they can easily turn into their full job if they get laid off, because that's how uncertain the footing is in this field right now. Like, I don't know if you heard in 2020, I think, was it Encom or iHeartRadio, one of the big guys laid off like 40% of their workforce, just like in one fell swoop. So when you're working in this industry, I think one of the best pieces of advice somebody gave me right when I joined is, make sure that you have something that you do, a side hustle that you can easily turn into a full-time job if you need to, because it's just, everything is so fickle with the market, with people who want to advertise in 2020, especially with the economy being the way it is and small businesses wanting to conserve rather than spend. But finally, the listeners, right? I mean, how often do you listen to the radio?
Not much.
Like,
I used to.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just a fact of life that younger people just don't really listen to the radio as much anymore. Only if it's like stuff like the Minx, where they do a double your paycheck, right? Every week they pick somebody and they double their paycheck. Well, then, yeah, people listen to that because they want money.
Yeah.
But the concept of having people listen to United Community is a little bit less rare nowadays. Or, sorry, more rare, I'd say, nowadays. And that leads me to another thing, though, because that's another reason why this station's so interesting, because we're also like an ethnic station, right? So we're not just a local, but we're also serve the purpose of unifying, Polish Americans. So either this is people who literally just came to America and don't know any English, or it's the, grandkids of immigrants who still want to be in touch with their roots. So I think the only reason that we make sense as a station right now is because we serve as kind of a hub for unifying a specific community.
Yeah.
But even that, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how long it'll last. I want it to last. I think it's a cool idea, especially because, did I mention the fact that we speak Polish and English in the show? So I speak Polish and my co-host sometimes speaks English.
And you have like conversations back and forth.
Yeah.
What? That's very crazy.
It's specifically tailored to, well, kind of immigrants to help them learn, but also just like first, second, third generation.
Is that a common thing in
Nope.
ethnic race? No.
So it's very experimental. My boss is cool, but he's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Because will this work for long term? Nobody knows. So, yeah.
How long has it been a radio station?
It just turned 3. In October. 3 years.
Yeah.
So.
Man, that is so crazy to me. Like, I cannot get over that.
Isn't that weird? It's cool, but it's weird.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
crazy stuff. So I know you wanted to talk about how music has changed throughout 2020. Do you have anything to say about that?
Oh, yeah, a little bit, I guess. I feel like people have more seriously taken the aspect of visual components with their music in 2020 a lot more. I think live streams really changed the game for a lot of people and have opened people's eyes to what they need to be doing more of to maintain relevancy. I don't know. I think that there's a lot of really interesting trends that are happening that will probably continue to happen long after 2020 is over, man. Like live streams, I've seen some of them, the more successful ones are like mini movies now. People have their own special effects set up. They are, have people specifically set up to respond to commentators on the show, which makes the audience feel like they're a lot more involved sometimes with the show, I think. Like people, because you can hear your like favorite artist talk back to your comment or respond back to your thing.
Yeah.
Versus like a concert setting where it's more of a giant. I mean, sure, you're there and you guys are all feeling the groove, the vibe of the show together, but you don't have that individual contact with the artist.
Yeah, there's more of a separation.
Right. I think that's really game changing. I think that'll probably stay. And I mean, things like TikTok have been starting to do like sponsor people's live streams, or Minecraft was doing like a bunch of live stream concerts.
What?
Yeah, where you can like be your avatar, and they would have like a stage set up in Minecraft world, and they would like show the videos. It was really crazy.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know necessarily musically what this is. Oh, well, and then TikTok itself, I guess, is a musical game changer because people are getting really blowing up off of a single lately. I mean, I know that Spotify has kind of allowed people to do that, but TikTok, man, I was looking at the Forbes top 30 under 30 for 2020. 4 or 5 of those people were TikTok stars under the age of like 20 who literally got famous because of one song that people chose to dance to. And then I don't know how I think TikTok does this, like that you can link it so that you can find the song then on Spotify, and people just blow up. Like 24K Golden or whatever, he had like 250 million streams last year. He just blew up off of TikTok.
Yeah.
So I think that social media and visual elements are 2 things that really kind of blew up last year, and people have realized how important they are to, quote, maintaining relevancy in like the mass public's point of view, and kind of surpassing low key certain maybe gateways like radio, the fact that you can't get radio airplay but you can get TikTok famous,
Yeah,
because of your song.
That is a good thing. There's less gatekeepers, I feel like.
Right. I don't know what that means for what makes me worried though is I don't know what that means for the future of like originality necessarily in music, because people might see this as a form of, trying to tailor the music so that it becomes, for example, TikTok famous, or trying to focus so much on the visuals of a live stream that the songwriting maybe starts to lack. I don't know, but I find it very interesting how much the visual component has blown up last year of music, and how much is it like kind of allowed people to become more interactive with music and musicians in general.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I think people are instead of courting record companies, they're just like courting people online. Like it's still, it's not like the quality's going down, because it's always like there's always been certain artists who their goal is to get famous or make money or whatever, which is cool. But instead of, like trying to impress the elites, it's just like to impress whoever's using said app,
Right. Yeah, I guess that's a really fair point. I don't mean to say that like, people are all going to be in it for the money or for the fame,
for sure.
It's, yeah.
I will say though that and I don't even have a TikTok, so I probably shouldn't.
Don't get it, dude. I just got it like a few days ago with the intent of just using it for research, and I just got so overwhelmed that
research,
I don't even like.
Yeah,
it's not worth.
Sure.
I mean, it is if you are somebody who can be okay with. And I'm gonna say this, and maybe some people are gonna get mad. There's a certain degree of fakeness that comes to a lot of the like most featured content, I think.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things are scripted, which is cool. That's fine, But it's just a little bit strange to me that there's like a certain almost like type of humor you see repeating itself, because it's what a lot of the more famous TikTokers are doing. So it's like this kind of cycle of, for example, humor, or cycle of dances, the way that people do their makeup when they're doing their dances. It could be very creative. People can be, can take these trends and make them their own. I've definitely seen a lot of that, but I've also seen a lot of just this rehashing of something that already worked, to the point of where it's like, oh my God, I've seen this 10 million times. I kind of want to turn off the app because it's so mind numbing, So
yeah, and that can happen musically for sure.
Right.
And it's
not
like,
to shit on TikTok, by the way. It's just like, I personally am not somebody who, I don't think the app is geared towards, because I don't like the
target market.
I'm not the target market. Yeah. Which is fine, so
yeah,
it's worth going on though, Wes. You should check it out, just so you know what's happening.
Maybe I'll get one tonight. I do think like insert like that TikTok thing. It's more so TikTok than Facebook and Instagram and stuff. I think for TikTok, it would be hard for it to work for every genre. There's a very specific, like a couple genres I feel like it would really work for. But some, especially more like niche genres, or, some genres rely more on a sense of community, like audience interaction, things like that. That's like making those artists like more kind of obsolete, and then like top, I guess like top 40-ish people are like very, trendy styles of music are going to flourish on TikTok, so.
Yeah, I think definitely things that, what's the word? Oh, I just said a word and I forgot it. I'll remember it later, but I totally agree with you. I think it's things that are more catchy, maybe a little bit more.
Because there's a time limit, right?
Yeah, it's 30 or 60 seconds. So I think things that you can capture the essence of in those 30 to 60 seconds are what's going to flourish. But things like, jazz, or even like more free form, rock music, metal music,
Yeah.
can you really capture the essence of a song in 30 to 60 seconds? It's hard with a lot of those genres. Yeah, so I totally feel that. But on the flip side, duets. Have you heard of how people are using TikTok duets in music?
No.
So like they make a 30 to 60 second song, and you can choose to make the option of making it duettable. So if you turn that on, then somebody else can record them a video while they're listening to your old video. And a lot of musicians have been doing that to make like, mashups, or like somebody starts like a guitar riff, a vocalist comes in to do vocals over it, and then another vocalist comes over to do harmonies over it. So in that respect, I think TikTok has been actually great in forming a community within, like, I don't know, maybe people who do like loops, or producers, people who are looking for that kind of music, because it's very interesting. You can collaborate with whoever you want at the click of a button. So that's pretty cool.
And that's another way, it's like getting rid of that separation between the artist and the fan, because like any fan could record with their favorite artist, and if it's good, that could like make them really successful. Like imagine if this was around in like the 1970s,
dude.
Like how everything would change.
It's pretty crazy. What's also really crazy is, I think at the beginning of the year, or no, at the end of last year, TikTok said that they had like set aside a specific amount of money to the first, like the next couple of people who reached like 1 million views on a single TikTok video. And then they were going to distribute some of that money for the people who reached that 1 million on one TikTok video. And I found that really interesting, because they're not talking about 1 million subscribers or 1 million views like over a couple of YouTube or a couple of videos. Just one, you can be a one-hit wonder, and they'll monetize you for that, incentivize you to keep making these kind of one-hit wonder videos too. So I don't know what that necessarily means for, maybe it means people just have like really short, I don't know. People really don't care about the content creators as much, but I don't feel like that's true. I don't know. It's interesting though. I just kind of want to throw that out there while we're talking about TikTok, that they're definitely incentivizing the one-hit kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Viral sensations. Not necessarily like the whole content creators, but just the video itself. So
I think it's really stuff like that. One of the bad things about it is it makes artists who, let's say like literally half the artists you had on your show, or it's like they have these concept albums or whatever that take time to listen to. Right. That's not really a thing that exists in this world that we're talking about.
Only for a niche, right? Only for a niche, which people can, to be fair, become successful off of a niche, but it is a little sad that this seems to be fading more from mainstream. But to kind of counter argue that, Dan brought up this point a few days ago to me when I was kind of bemoaning the same problem about concept albums and the fact people just don't listen to things from start to finish anymore. He mentioned the fact that it might just kind of be a cycle, because if you think about like the 50s and even early 60s, a lot of that time was very singles heavy focus. Like sales were driven by singles, not by albums. And then you got into like the late 60s, 70s, concept albums became a huge thing. People became really groupies and like wanted to show off their knowledge of a certain group by listening to like all their albums in a row. Yeah. So he made up this really interesting point that maybe it is just like a giant cycle, and we'll see the return of the album again. But right now we're in this singles mentality because of the accessibility of streaming services and things like that.
That's a very, very good point. Because eventually people are going to get sick of it. Yeah. And then people are going to get sick of albums, like after that, it does go back and forth. I feel like just with any other trend in music or culture or whatever. And, when there is a trend going on, like, let's say singles, I guess right now are kind of a trend. I mean, there's still like, 30% of the population are still like consuming music in other ways. Like there's always going to be like large amounts of people who are just stuck in their ways. Like let's say someone loves listening to records. Like they're not going to stop doing that just because a trend pops up. And imagine like they all combine. How many people in the world are still into that? So there is a market for these artists. It's just like, how do they reach them?
Mm-hmm. That's the golden question.
yeah. And if I knew, I would be famous.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a question that like Bandcamp has tried to solve. That Spotify, to be honest, has maybe, I don't know. I don't feel like they started with the intent of becoming this kind of uber monopolizing streaming service. The idea is to get people to discover things that are in their tastes, right?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I really hope that there's one social media platform that's kind of trying to do that right now. Have you heard of Loom before?
No.
Loom. Basically trying to be like a MySpacey kind of thing for, but you can be a musician, or you can be an artist, or you can be just like a normal, music lover. And it's basically a music discovery platform. So you go to like the city, and then they'll have like little artist profiles, and you can check out their songs and stuff like that. And it's a really cool concept, but I don't see it really popping off mainstream, because there's something, I think in order for something to really be mainstream, people have to be convinced that it can be accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
And while we love, supporting local music, and we want to highlight where certain local music comes from, for sure, kind of that's how how certain music gets its flavor. I think for as long as you label local music, some people will think that's like a little bit of an accessibility barrier. Some people will be like, well, I don't want to listen to local music. What's local music? I want to listen to good music,
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's a really interesting question. I don't know.
I think things have to be really easy for people, for them to hop on.
Yeah.
Spotify is the easiest thing in the world to use. You click on the song, it plays. You can search anything and it comes up,
Right.
I feel like, places like SoundCloud, while they're cool, like it's so like,
overwhelming a little bit.
Overwhelming. Yeah. And it's just, not everybody knows how to use it, So, and it's like, people's attention spans are so short. It's like, they're not going to even try. So if there is going to be an alternative, it's got to be so simple, I feel like.
100%. Yeah. I don't know. What do you feel, really quickly? I know that, 2020 kind of put a stop to this for a little bit, but I feel like prior to 2020, I don't know about you, I kind of got the feeling that more people around here, at least, were kind of getting into like DIY venues and like smaller, going to concerts in like people's basements, not necessarily supporting local musicians at like restaurants or in bars, but I got the feeling that there's more and more people like just really interested in doing house shows. And I wonder what that's indicative of. Chicago.
The western suburb, in Chicago in general.
Yeah. Because I kind of heard more and more about it as like, I know 2019, I got invited to a lot more than like I have the year before that and then the year before that. I just feel like there's definitely something, I don't know, but it might be just my experience. So I'm just curious what you've seen.
It's so hard to tell, because it also could be like the people you surround yourself with too,
right?
Because I've been going to DIY shows frequently since probably 2014, 2015. I think more and more genres are embracing them now, because it was punk was the big genre that always did DIY shows. That's like
100%, yeah.
Because there's so many reasons to do it. It's usually more counterculture type genres. And then like indie kind of it there's a lot of overlap. But I think that, and also like the word DIY in itself has like become very cliche, especially like all the BuzzFeed articles like DIY make like a chair or whatever, it's like, oh, DIY, we can have a
your
DIY
Christmas
show.
Tree. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like not even like a counterculture thing anymore because everything is DIY now.
Right.
Like everybody is a bedroom producer, which is, I think, good in a way.
Yeah, that's a good thing, I think.
But, everybody's catching on to it now. So I don't think it's as unique to like a specific genre, know. Even pop artists, because there are pop artists, but like indie pop is a thing, and it's like it doesn't really sound that different. It's just they don't have a label because nobody has a label anymore.
Right. And I feel like I've always laughed at indie pop in particular a little bit just because it sounds like it's contradicting itself, independent, but it's popular music, right? So it's just kind of funny. And it's I don't like shit on people for it because obviously indie means something different for everybody. But that's honestly one of the reasons why I don't like using that term so much, just because it has come to mean so many different types of things.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what's not indie anymore?
Yeah. Exactly.
Unless you're like signed to a record label, then I don't think you can qualify as indie anymore.
I mean, now you can. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's like festivals like Pitchfork. I think we went to Pitchfork together one time. Was that?
Yeah,
did that happen?
Think or like
yeah.
somehow.
I remember your dad
there.
drove us home once from Pitchfork.
Was that Pitchfork?
That was Pitchfork. Yeah,
that was Pitchfork.
Yeah, that was a great time.
That was a fun time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
But there's so many people at that festival, and that's like an indie festival, But it's like.
But is it an indie festival?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's just such a mishmash,
It's interesting though, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I like the fact that there's a lot less gatekeeping now in music. I think now the question is, right when you were talking about how do we find the musicians we want to find? How do people sift through all this information to get the music that they want to listen to, really? And how do artists get discovered? So that's the next step. That's the next thing we have to figure out.
Live performance, I think, will always be one of the best ways for that, I really don't think it's truly going to leave. I would be very upset if it did,
No. I think there's going to be a hybrid, though, more. I do think that people more at their live shows will be also simultaneously live streaming. Not that
for sure.
This has kind of shown how easy that is. But no, there's no like replacing the feeling of being like in a live concert.
Yeah.
That's just something that's really magical. That won't ever go. Can't possibly,
Yeah.
So.
Well, especially when there's these shows with like multiple bands and stuff. That's like, because you're like, for someone to see a band they want to see, they have to sit through your band, someone else's band, So it's like you have their attention for your whole set, unlike on the internet where you have their attention, if you're lucky, for 2 seconds.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's always going to be a thing.
100%. Yeah. Although I'm glad that I think lately, before the pandemic, the shows I've been going to that have been multi-band, kind of people shows, at least the producers of them have been getting better at kind of doing themes within, I wouldn't even say like, sometimes genre or just like style of band. Because I don't know about you, but I remember playing my first couple of shows in high school at They Found Us, and some of those shows, they were so poorly, like the bands were so poorly matched up that there was people who would leave before, our band would go on, just because they couldn't handle the fact that there's like a metal band, for example, before like this kind of light, whatever the frick we were, like, I don't know, just light rock band. I think it's very cool to see a lot more people curating shows more seriously. Like, I enjoyed so many of the shows I went to in 2019 that had like 4 or 5 bands on the list. And they weren't all the same genre, but there was just something more consistent about like the style.
Yeah,
or the
when it
theme.
is open season like that, it usually is a pretty bad result, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think that's very much a Western suburbs
Western
thing.
burbs.
Yeah.
Trying to exploit a little
Yeah.
bit, get as much money as you can from a show. Not
Well, yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
and a lot of it has to do with like just shitty promoters, to be honest. Just like, just trying to get all these bands because they know like kids are desperate to play anywhere, and they're making them sell tickets and all this stuff, you know. So those shows are just kind of a nightmare, but I think, you know, as you get closer to the city, arguably, I think people are better about curating
100%.
who plays what show. You know, it's not like, yeah, sure, fuck it, you can play if you sell like 20 tickets. It's more like, is your band good? Does your band kind of sound like this other band? You know, it doesn't work if there's like a metal band and a ska band and a folk band. Yeah, it's just like people don't like that much variety. You know, it's just got to be slight changes, you know?
Right. It's just kind of, I don't know. It always made me wonder how the hell that formula came about. Like how and why promoters started doing that. I mean, I understand trying to get as many bands possible so that they can maybe draw as many people as possible. But when they saw that it wasn't working, why keep doing it?
Yeah. Well, it works in a way. Like, it doesn't work for people's enjoyment, you know, but like the guarantee of just like, you have to sell this many tickets.
That's true.
It has to work, you know, because or else they can't play or they have to buy the tickets, you know, so it's monetary. Yeah, that shit's...
I remember those days.
I don't think I ever actually agreed to one of those, but I knew so many people who did, and it was just
My band definitely did once. We bought our own tickets because we didn't sell them.
Yeah.
It was so like, bad.
Yeah. And it's like, for what?
Nothing. Literally, yeah. But we didn't recognize it at the time. And like you said, too many young bands, too many like people in high school, for example, are just willing... They just want to go out and play, so they'll do anything.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're like... And I think the promoters know this. Like, when you're that young, you don't know any better. And it's like kind of taking advantage of kids in a way. And I think it also... it doesn't destroy local music, but it makes it so much harder for it to grow, because it's like, where is everybody gonna play? It's like, either you become a cover band or you pay all this money up front. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And that's why people do DIY shows, is because they're just like sick of dealing with promoters or venues, and it's like they're just trying to find a place to play. You know, like, these kids aren't trying to make money at all, even.
Yeah.
You know, they just want to play music to their friends.
That's it. That's why I started a radio show. Just wanted to ship friends music. That's it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're doing a really good job of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I try, right? That's all we can ever do is try.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
What is, this is a very big 180. What is an album, genre, or artist that has like completely just changed your life? I know that's a very hard question. I should probably ask people that ahead of time.
No, it's okay. It's okay. There's like there's three that come to mind right off the bat, to be honest.
Okay.
All for different points in my life. Queen, Greatest Hits album when I was like 8 definitely changed my life, because I think it was the first time I recognized that a band can be so successful while being so incredibly diverse. Like, their Greatest Hits album, even though it's a Greatest Hits album, right? Double-sided too. It's got like 20 tracks on each side. Even though it's a Greatest Hits, so many of the songs have their individual character. They don't all sound the same. You know how like a Bon Jovi greatest... Sorry, not to knock Bon Jovi, but I listened to one of their Greatest Hits.
You can knock Bon Jovi. I give you permission.
But their Greatest Hits album, and while I do like some of the songs, I'm not going to lie, a lot of them kind of start to sound the same. I just remember to hear, you know, just having this like epiphany moment listening to Queen, just like being like so impressed by the diversity of this one band every song was so damn good, so damn different, and they were all like on this greatest hits album. So that was definitely a big game changing moment for me.
Have you seen the biopic?
Love. I have. I've seen.
Do you like it?
So much. Yes, I like it. I like it as a story, as a movie. I don't think it's a very good biopic per se. I think that it was definitely dramatized and is it sensationalized? There we go. That's the word I was looking for. I think a little bit sensationalized. But there's a few things that I really think the biopic did well, and that was in particular ending where they ended. A very, very strong moment, because in every interview that Freddie did, and especially the end of his life, he did not want the world to know him as somebody like a poster child for AIDS. He did not want to be known as somebody who like is this poor martyr who succumbed to this awful disease. He wanted to be known as this beautiful artist who made this great song. So I thought that was a very cool way to pay tribute to him. And I think there's really good things too. I mean, there was moments where you saw how lonely being an artist is, like a frontman to that, extreme.
Especially someone so famous.
Right. That was very moving and I think very cool. Of course there's those Hollywood jokes that you can see a mile away that they threw in there and all those other things. But all in all, I thought it was an enjoyable movie.
The guy, if I remember correctly, looked just like Freddie Mercury.
Oh yeah, he got hit. What was his name? Oh, I'm gonna be so sad. I don't remember his name right now. But yeah, no, the way that he studied Freddie's movements and everything is insane. He really got the essence, and everyone else too. By the way, like everyone in that band. Brian May looked like Brian May, Roger Taylor looked like Roger Taylor. Yep. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So big props to them. Queen was definitely one of those bands, like pivotal moment for me. That's when I wanted to kind of hopefully be in a band one day. I started thinking that when I listened to Queen.
Was your first band They Found Us?
Yeah. And that lasted for a long time. We're still technically together and we still all love each other, but we don't really play music anymore. Yeah. It's just for a lot of the people in the band, music is not their number one priority right now, and that's okay. That's life. But we're keeping the door open if a situation comes where we can make more music, we want it to happen. You know what I mean? So that's definitely one thing. Leonard Cohen is another big guy. Yeah. That's when I started wanting to write good lyrics. And I remember that was also kind of like that wasn't super early. That was like 11 or something when I started really paying attention to what my dad was listening to in the car. He loves Leonard Cohen. He is in love with him. And there's something I had a huge poetry phase where I just got super into all the sappiest freaking things, and I was like, damn, this sounds like honey. This is like, I see these images like Suzanne, or
I was about to say, I love that song.
That song, the imagery in that song, you don't need to know the full story. Like the story kind of is told to you in bits and pieces, right? But you have these this image of who Suzanne is as a person through these little allegories. I think that's so beautiful. So that's what convinced me to kind of start writing better lyrics, even though I'm still far from
emotive, I feel like. And he's not, I guess I feel like he's not a great vocalist, but he's similar to Bob Dylan in the sense that it's like he can just paint a picture so well. He also, he sounds nothing like Tony Bennett, but like... he reminds me of Tony Bennett in the fact that it's just like he can do something so simple and it can make such an impact on you. Yeah. And they're just like, just incredibly like expressive,
Agreed, 100%. Yeah, and it helps too that he's like a deep voice, like a narrator, voice of God, kind of just exactly, He doesn't have to sing; he can just talk.
Yeah,
right.
For real.
Really cool voice. And then the last one would definitely be this is something that I've not managed to incorporate yet into my life, but oh my God, when I discovered the Goat Rodeo Sessions album with Yo-Yo Ma, Edgar Meyer, Chris Thiele, Stuart Duncan, my mind was blown. This was like high school, and I've delved into so much newgrass because of that album.
Is that what they call it, newgrass?
Yeah, it's kind of
newgrass, or
I've heard people say NU and EW grass, modern bluegrass, just classical crossover. It's so freaking cool. Like, I did not know you could make music that, I didn't know you can make bluegrass sound like that. I didn't know you can make bluegrass sound good, because I didn't know anything about bluegrass at the time. And I was like, this has elements of jazz, elements of classical, elements of like some, folk medley diddly thing that, some guys came up with in Tennessee or Georgia probably. It's so cool and so
They're
free.
All freaks.
It's so free though, too.
Yeah.
It's like somehow the melody, you can't always hum it, but there's something that like is so alive about that music. It's just, man, if I can figure out
anybody
a way.
could like it. It surpasses like genre classifications and narratives, I don't know many people who identify themselves as I'm bluegrass, like some people say I'm metal, There
You
are
should
a
talk to
couple
Gene
people.
Hatmaker. Surprisingly, Gene Hatmaker's pretty bluegrass. She likes it a lot.
I believe it. But yeah, I feel like just anybody could listen to that and be like, oh, that's good music. Like it touches people, like, while overstepping like genre boundaries, All of those guys are just like crazy good musicians.
They're freaking incredible. They're amazing. And because
Chris
of that
Thiele?
album, yes. Oh my God.
That guy's very cool too. Like I listened to, he was on a pod. He was a,
doesn't he do, he does his own like podcast on Saturday nights / live show, right? What's it called?
He probably does. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's very cool though, like very down to earth. I heard him on, I don't know if you know who Pete Holmes is. He's like a comedian.
I've heard of him. I haven't checked his stuff out, but I've heard of him.
He has a podcast, and he had Chris Thiele on, and it was like such an interesting guest for me. I think he was on his podcast, almost positive. But he's just such a cool guy and into so many different genres, and like half the shit they talked about was like, meaning of life and like spirituality and all this stuff, and it's like, that guy is
super cool.
Really, really cool. And Edgar Meyer is
what a freak.
He uses like a shitty bass bow.
No, I did not. Are you serious?
He likes bad bass bows. I don't know why, but bad as in like a couple $100, but like for someone like that, he's one of the best bass players ever. And you'd think his bow would be like thousands and thousands of dollars, but he likes bad bass bows for some reason.
That's pretty cool though. That's like that's actually kind of inspiring.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
the musician that makes the instrument, I mean, to a certain extent, of course, I can't. Obviously, if you have a shitty instrument, you can't get to Edgar Meyer's status, maybe. But there's a lot. There's a lot about the musician behind the instrument that really makes the instrument sound the way it does. So, but yeah, man, that like opened my eyes to so many. Like, I got into Bella Fleck because of that album.
Cool.
I got into so much cool stuff that I would have never seen if I didn't see that one NPR Tiny Desk thing of them just playing the parts of the album live,
Yeah.
So,
you ever heard that album? There's two of them, Bass and Mandolin.
Yes.
With Chris Thiele and Edgar Meyer. I've only heard the second one.
I don't know which one I've listened to.
I think probably the second one. It's
maybe.
It's more just popular, but I listened to that and I was just like, oh my God, like if I could sound like someone on classical bass, it would be this. And it's just, it's so hard to tell, like, when are they improvising? When is it written down? Like, where's the melody? It's so, like, free-flowing, and it's, like, they're constantly, like, interacting in such, like, a playful way. It's just such a high level of musicianship.
Right. It's so beautiful, right? That's 100%. That's what I forgot to mention when I mentioned Goat Rodeo, is this idea that it's so hard to tell when the melody is stopping and when someone's like improvising over it, and because it all sounds, it's different than jazz. I feel like jazz can sometimes be, unless, I mean, I'm not a big connoisseur, obviously, so I don't know that much what I'm talking about, but I feel like in jazz there's more distinctions between this is the improv section now, this is the A section now, and this is just like, even within the melodic sections where it's like supposed to be the A section, someone's going off and doing their own fucking thing, and it's okay because he'll go off and do his own thing but eventually come back and rejoin the group. It's such a freedom to it. So cool. So beautiful. Yeah. So
great music. Awesome. Those were good answers for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I can't pick one. And then, like, as we're talking, of course, I think of more, but we're just going to keep it at those.
Yeah, and you'll probably, end this and then be like, fuck, why didn't I say that thing,
Right.
I was interviewing someone yesterday. This is my second interview, by the way. So,
ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, so you're one of the OGs. I was interviewing someone yesterday, my friend, and he had about 20 he picked. But it was like he'd say a couple, and then we'd go talking about something else, and he's like, wait, I forgot this thing, and he's like, throwing in all these different albums and stuff, and that's probably how I would do it, like people do those album things on Facebook. If you remember, it's like top 10 albums or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I never did one because I just couldn't pick.
I always started, and then after the first 3, I gave up because I'm like, wait, I have way too many to continue doing this. Yeah, it's hard. But actually, what's a nice thing about working in radio is I've learned to kind of start limiting things. So even though my brain is now rattling off like 10 more albums, I can tell you. Yeah. I know from a realistic standpoint, I should probably stop because otherwise I'll keep going and never stop. So,
Cool. Well, it was awesome having you on the podcast. You've been such a good guest. Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It was really fun chatting. Yeah. I hope that you continue to do this with other people. Yeah. And let me know when it's up. I'd love to share it. And I'd also like to invite you to the Underbelly Hours sometime now that we've rebooted and have all our fancy stuff. Just let me know once, maybe I always like to encourage guests to come on the show once they have something that we can also kind of plug sporadically throughout. Yeah. So, maybe once you have like more of a set date for your album or just something other big project for Brainstorm or whatever that you want to talk about, just let me know. And we'd love to have you on.
Yeah. Also, all of Brainstorm now lives in Illinois again. So that's kind of why we're doing stuff, because Liam just got done with college, so he's like living in Elmhurst again. So if you wanted, we could like all go on there and maybe talk about the Brainstorm album when it comes out.
Oh my God, dude. That'd be great. Yeah. Actually, send me a message because I think that'd be fun for sure.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
All
cool.
Right.
Well, thanks for being on.
For sure. Have a great rest of your evening, and we'll be in touch.
All right. For sure. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wait. How do you want me to send you the audio? So I've been recording it a little bit. Well, a little bit. I've been recording the whole thing, but
yeah, bits and pieces. I'll message you about it.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, cool. Take care.